Welcome everyone to 24G's inaugural podcast. I'm Leanne Knowles. I'm the Director of Learning Services here at 24G. I've also got our CEO, Scott Wiemels. Thanks for being here, Scott.
Hello.
And our special guest, Darrin Martin, who's the Training and Development Manager for the Volkswagen Academy, the Volkswagen of America.
Hello.
Welcome, Darrin. For reference,
Thank
you're welcome. VW Academy has been a long-time client of 24G, and we've worked with Darrin for a long time on VW Cup, one of our more advanced training platforms. And in addition to that, Cup growing, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today, other digital communication platforms and training tools, as well as content creation, video production, ISD support, the whole deal. And Scott and I have both worked with Darrin for many, many years, so very excited to have you here to talk a little bit about how we've evolved in the last year, especially training in the time of a pandemic, which I don't think any of us ever thought we were going to have to do.
No.
Not at all.
No.
No.
Don't want to do it again
Not
either.
at all.
No. Don't want to do it again. So really, I'd like
But
to just
we're doing
talk.
all right.
I think we are. Like, what do you think, Darrin?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. I know
What-
we're going to talk about it, but we're doing pretty well. So
We're Zooming and we're podcasting and we're
yeah.
engaging people online, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
It's happening.
we're finding all those different ways. So, I mean, what are some of the engagement tools from the VW Academy side that you've seen really kind of increase or have seen people interact with the most over the last year?
We instituted some Adobe Connect classes years ago just to offer dealers an opportunity to take training without having to travel, because that was the feedback we received from them, was that they didn't want to keep sending people because it was expensive and there was lost revenue. So we implemented that, and now it's just been very convenient that in a time of a pandemic, for the last 14, 15 months, we've really expanded a lot of what we've done virtually, and had the opportunity to convert a lot of face-to-face instructor-led content into virtual content. It's been pretty smooth transition. And yeah, I know we'll talk more about VW Cup and the micro-learning, the videos, all of those things, but I think we've pretty much hit this pandemic like full force.
Yeah, we were pretty well set up to hit this, from a digital standpoint and transformation. I know you and Scott were the ones who really concepted VW Cup and Track 360, the whole system with gamification and social interaction and peer learning. Talk to me a little bit about how you guys started that conversation and where did it go?
It's funny. You were with that project I remember being in the middle. Like, I wanted it to be someone. I forget who said it. I wanted it to be like Call of Duty, and my
plans. Yeah,
that was Mr. Plans. That was it. And
Mr. Plans.
And he really, conceptually, he knew what he was saying. I did not know what he was saying, but I did see, from my perspective, where I saw there being shortcomings, which is like this engagement layer, right? Like every single company has an LMS and it doesn't actually provide any sort of experience. It's very perfunctory, right? And you have all these other assets that aren't training material, but they're communication that leads to training over time. And they're all in different places, right? So my agenda was like, I like that. But then Darrin really had the overall concept idea of where he wanted to go with how it all came together. But it really, to me, was about how do you solve the problem of allowing somebody to have all these different places, have a way that you engage them in an experience that people want to actually enjoy, right? And engage with. And do it in a way that doesn't have to become all of those things. Like, it has a space for, you can still have an LMS, you can have third-party sites, and that's where the track aspect really seemed to fit.
For sure. And Darrin, I know we did have, from an academy standpoint, stuff kind of everywhere. Communications here and LMS there and in person and digital training. So what was your reasoning? Like, why did you decide it all needed to come in one place?
For the user experience, we sat down, man, it must have been like 6 years ago.
Yep.
And we all got in a room and just started talking about, to Scott's point, like, okay, we have an LMS, we have, web source, all these other platforms. What do they do? What's good? What did they not? What can't they do? Right? What gaps do we need to fill? Why do we need to fill them? Right? And we envisioned something, that in our minds could just do everything. Right? And that was the Call of Duty vision. And for me, how it made more sense was when I started thinking about like the leaderboard, right? It shows you your kills, your percentages, your effectiveness, your rankings, all of those types of things. And I'm like, yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. That's the feedback that people get that makes them understand what they need to do better. And there's team-based missions, right? There's challenges, there's all those types of things, and you get rewards for accomplishing just those little micro tasks within a game. So we mapped out like, okay, well, what could we do if we wanted to get this platform that just did everything we wanted, and it was like operating at 100% capacity, and we've referred to it as this Death Star, right? This world domination. Like, we just consume every other piece that we have into this one platform. What would it do? And then we kind of started to dial it back from a pragmatic standpoint. Like, all right, well,
where do you start?
Where do you start, right? What is, do we start at 35, 50%? Probably have to. And so what does that look like? And then, we've just, Scott and I and you, Leanne, and everybody at 24G, we've had these iterative enhancements, right? These quarterly status meetings, and just how do we keep getting closer and closer to that 100%, and we're pretty close, I think, at this point. I know we still keep working on things, but just organically, I knew it was going to happen. I think our biggest challenge was content, just developing content that could feed this machine. And I'd be lying if you guys would probably be lying too if you didn't think that like it would be really challenging. And there was always a chance that after like 6 months, it just totally crashed and burned because, maybe there's just not enough content to keep feeding this thing. Because without that, it really can't continue to function. There's only so much other stuff you can do.
That's definitely the truth. It's like there's two things that I think really work, but also are things that anybody that wants to endeavor down that path need to understand. One is that agile continually iterating and development cycle that never really ends. That's how you end up not having a legacy product, because you're always iterating it. But the other thing is, it's a mouth to feed, and you have to have the content there in order for it to work, right? Because it is a platform where you want people to come to engage content and other users, and you have to have that. It's funny that you said the Death Star, because I think of it more like Pinky and the Brain. You're the brain, I'm Pinky. Like, what are we going to do tonight, right? Same thing we do every night, Pinky.
Going to conquer the world.
Exactly.
How the hell did you get an organization that, even as Volkswagen, which is fairly progressive for an auto, to take the journey down the digital transformation road with you? Like, that is not an easy pull, no. Right? And it really is a pull, because you're going to be met with reasons why you shouldn't do it and can't do it everywhere you look. And you somehow broke free of that. And not only got off the ground, but created the flywheel, which everybody's after. I mean, it truly is a flywheel now, where people understand the value, the users are coming. Like, what was your trick, or what was your trick's not the right word, but what was your strategy to get that?
It was a
going?
long journey, and I think it continued to be a long journey even after VW Cup went live. We had presented this concept 10 times in big executive meetings, and I think it was the biggest struggle was some of the terms at the time, like gamification, weren't necessarily things that executive, like VPs at Volkswagen, were like, that sounds stupid, that sounds cheesy, so we had to think about like how we could make that connection. And we thought about the ways that gamification already impacts our lives. And I think one of the huge wins that propelled us into being able to move forward with this strategic vision was one of the conversations that I had with Laura. And I was thinking, well, what is it in her world that she could relate to this? And I thought of Starbucks, right? Because she goes to Starbucks every day. And I was like, listen, you have the Starbucks app on your phone. You use that to pay for your coffee, but you get rewards, the more you, and she's like, stop it. I get it. It makes perfect sense. I will go to Starbucks and buy a coffee I didn't even want because it
Yes.
came with extra stars that day. And I'm like, that's what gamification is, right? Like, you didn't even want the stupid coffee and you went and bought it. So it's like, it's the same thing. People comment on our stuff a lot and they're like, I just want the points. And it's like, I don't care. Great. You're here and you're watching it and you took the assessment and you passed it. And if you did all that for 40 points, that's the whole reason we built this website. So, it works. There are always going to be people who think it doesn't work or think that gamification is dumb and there's nothing we can do about that. But those same people probably play games on their phone all the time or whatever, but just don't necessarily make that connection because we were never trying to pitch the idea that people were just going to play like Wheel of Fortune all day. Right. The whole concept was like, how do you reward and engage users through this gamified infrastructure? And that's what we accomplished. And to my point earlier, sorry, I'm talking a lot, but it took a long time, even after we launched, because, we talked earlier, like the content, we got to feed it. We had to solicit it from people. We had to map out, like, we can't go 3 months without putting anything on this site or people will just stop coming back because it's, so we put a lot of content together even at the beginning that we had to wait to release later on. But now it's been 5 years since we launched this site and like people are coming to us every single day, right? Like, hey, I have all of these assets. Can you help me put something together on VW Cup where we can, support this program? And, a lot of what we do is just helping the other the business owners, promote their programs, share training, FAQs and all of those types of things. And it's become a platform that everybody knows that they use. And that's a success, complete success, in my opinion.
You've done the hardest thing of anybody. Like, obviously owning a digital company, people are always pitching you apps. The app part isn't the hard part. It's gaining the trust and regular attendance of the audience. And I think that's what you've got now is you've got the audience. Mm-hmm. And now because of that, people are coming with the content, right? From the business units.
Yep.
Yeah. And we have other business owners, like somebody just emailed Sherry yesterday and was like, hey, John Meredith recommended I reach out to you guys because I have, this training video and he said to put it on VW Cup. And I'm like, that's awesome. Now they're just, everybody else is doing our job for us, corporate right. or users. I mean, I knew it was going to get that organic traction, because I just believed that it, and, we knew it was going to work if we could continue to feed it and do all of the right things and make those adjustments, those iterative adjustments to continue to deliver that customer experience, the user experience that people expect. And they'll keep coming back, to Scott's point.
Yep. I mean, when you start talking about content, I mean, it's very similar to a company trying to do a social media campaign, right? Once you start feeding the gorilla, you got to continue to feed the gorilla. If you stop feeding the gorilla, then people stop engaging. So some of the things that I think the Academy and 24G together as a team in this partnership have done is created some pretty cool content.
Yes.
Some things that are way outside the box, way different than what other auto manufacturers or even other industries are doing in the training field. So what are some of your favorites, Darrin, when it comes to like content that is different or exciting to you?
Well, I think one of the coolest things that we did recently was something called the EV Adventure. and it's a microsite that kind of lives within VW Cup and is able to, track progress and things like that. But it's a kind of a game-based simulation where people get to interact with a variety of people, prospective customers, current customers of electric vehicles, ID4 owners, and it's all just done, through this kind of fun simulation where they get to answer questions. They can, some of the answers can just be fun and quirky, but some of them are being recorded for scores. And so, if they perform well, they get extra points. If they don't, then, they can have the opportunity to take it again. And, just the production quality, I think of some of the stuff that we've done with 24G has been unbelievable. And I know the latest series of videos we did for ID4 that ended up also being hosted on the Knowing Your VW site, which was public facing. So it's been an absolute blast.
My favorite is probably that mini series that we made just before the pandemic, because that mini series was so far outside the box. I wanted to kill it
for
myself.
The accessories.
Yes, I did. It made me so nervous.
Yeah.
And the one lesson I've learned is, like, when you're nervous, you're probably doing something right. But I just watched that. I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be the last job we do for VW, because it was like so. And it isn't like Leanne. Like, we got quite a bit of.
Oh yeah, a lot of traction. I mean, and I was with you on that, Scott. Like,
oh, you were too.
I was nervous. Yeah, I mean, this idea came out of, like, let's do it.
Were.
Let's do a Netflix style series and do it about selling accessories. And I'm like, okay, let's see how this plays out. But, at the end of the day, it was engaging. It was different. And going on VW Cup and looking at the comments and looking at how people did on their assessments and retaining the knowledge. So as an instructional designer, I'm like, score. I'm not even a fan of that type of comedy. But it was a project that I feel really proud of. I think that we did something very, very different, and I look forward to going on to season 2 once the pandemic is over.
Definitely got people's attention, and that's a huge win,
right?
Regardless, yeah.
You talked about ID4. Volkswagen set up to sell 22 million electric vehicles through 2028. That's a pretty ambitious goal. Mm-hmm. And it's a crucial moment right now for VW, because we're having this commitment to electric that's going to really shift the industry. Digital transformation's required for this. So what are your plans, or how do you plan on keeping people engaged through the electrical revolution?
That's a hell of a question.
I know. I was thinking to give you a softball.
It's like a doctoral thesis, I think, is what we're looking for on this.
I've actually prepared a 12-page paper on that. Glad you should mention it.
Yeah. I mean, you did ask the librarian to moderate here, okay?
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, you've got the glasses.
I know.
That's amazing. Yeah.
But for real, we can scale it back. ID4 was a big piece, right? For the initial launch, for the dealer network, and for the public. We've been doing a lot of preparation. I guess, what are you doing to get your dealers prepared?
I think that's the bigger question. I think we're seeing that across the board with all the OEs that we work with. It's dealer readiness for electrification is something that everybody knows is out there, but I don't think everybody has a handle on the best strategy on how much of it is process and operational, how much is it training, how much is just understanding, communicating what that means. It seems like we all see this massive tide coming.
For sure.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I mean, we started with the high voltage training probably 2 years ago, and knowing that there was a strategy from the brand to sell 22 million electric vehicles, you got to be prepared, right? If you look at social media now, I mean, Ford just announced the F-150 electric. GM's introduced their electric vehicle platform, I think Iridium or something it was called. But, everybody's making the switch, and you have to be prepared. but it's not just an effort from the training department. I mean, it takes network preparedness. They've done a really good job setting up tiers for how dealers can actually enroll to be, EV ready, depending on the number of chargers they get, special tools, lift equipment, all of those types of things. And our job is to sustain that and to support that with training. And the way that we're prepared is through programs like VW Cup, which are completely mobile compatible. It's device agnostic, right? They can do the training anywhere. We continue to support this through our micro learning platform. I mean, I was just presenting on a call an hour ago on all of the content that we've just done for ID4 since like February. And there's been 10 challenges on VW Cup. I don't know, probably 50 or 60 different assets just focused on this car. And some of those early challenges have over 8,000 people who have completed them. So people are incredibly engaged. I mean, they're prepared. The Volkswagen is doing like mystery shops and surveys and all types of things just to make sure that the network is ready, because it's going to be the future for probably most automotive brands.
The micro training is something we should probably talk about too with that, Leanne, because I think you hit something on with that micro training, Darrin, because that's part of the solution,
It's
right? The fact that you can take smaller assets and combine them together and push them out almost on demand, or as you're seeing that market requirement, right? Like that's something that I think that Cup does really well.
Yeah, it's the right training at the right time.
Correct. And it's not always a 45-minute web course with a voiceover and an assessment at the end.
There's always an assessment at the end.
I honestly don't think that in a couple years we'll be even looking at developing like the old-fashioned e-learning web-based trainings at all. I mean, you've got tools like Rise that can build, very substantial HTML-based, micro courses. And you've got video content, and Cup can support all of the different asset types that you would want to put into a course. So why not just deconstruct it and make it available, make it more referenceable? And one of the other things that I was going to add to your point was we've been working on something since the last couple months with you guys as well to reimagine how we engage learners, especially as it comes to like introducing them to the products. In the past, we've always just had like an hour-long overview of VW products, web-based training that people sit down and take and click next and, whatever. But now they're going to do it on their phone. It's going to be augmented reality. They're going to, say, hey, I'm looking at an ID4. It's going to recognize that they're looking at an ID4. It's going to put hotspots on top. It's going to walk them through the different, technology, powertrain, exterior, interior, pop the hood open and see what's underneath and, either consume a piece of media or answer this question. And, we've been building this structure all of these years so that these things can happen. And that's what's awesome. I mean, I would say 5 years ago, it was always the joke in the academy that like, it's easy. Dealers just want you to have, training every course and every dealership every day. And that was the big joke. Like, well, we can never do that. It's like, I don't think it's really that much of a joke anymore. I think we're getting to the point where we can deliver content to everybody every day and every dealership, maybe not a course for a technician on how to remove a high voltage battery and repair it because they don't have test cars lying around. But, if they're just introducing them to the products and getting them to walk around vehicles and do things like that, we can provide those types of guided user experiences. And now we have the infrastructure to do that.
Yeah, and I think you make a good point with the guided user experiences because really those become mobile performance support. So as a salesperson or as a service consultant, if there are questions that I can't answer about that vehicle, I've always got it with me. And so I can still be the consultant that my customer expects. So what I've seen with Cup and with the micro training and that ability is really improving the customer experience. And as we know, anytime we see a tablet in a dealership, it does increase customer satisfaction for some reason. And so, customers expect that you don't have it all in your brain these days. And it's nice to have tools like, and especially with AR, I'm really excited about this AR project. I don't know if you guys want to talk a little bit more about how it works, because it's a really cool learning tool.
Oh, allow me to geek out on AR.
Yeah, geek out.
Oh my God. I don't know if you've seen the demos, but our R&D and tech teams are having a blast on that program. And it's just, the phones have finally gotten to the point with the processors that you can do effective AR with object recognition without markers, and and weaponizing that for training by creating a modular platform is I think pretty far out there for the market to see, but like seeing it come to life in our shop has been pretty cool.
That's awesome.
But that is like 24G's dirty little secret, right? What we do is we see, well, one, we can actually implement, but we see what's working in the outside world and we apply it in B2B environments where people are already trained to engage and have a certain expectation. Yeah. It's not revolutionary on that side to say, what if we did this for them where they have to go to train? I think, and that's they're used to using AR. They're, and can I also give a nod to the QR code finally finding its home during the pandemic, right? Like agencies have been pitching QR codes for like years, and they've sucked because you had to have like an app that you would go to, which is to then basically populate a URL. Now that we can't touch damn menus, and they built the technology into the camera. Now it's like the little QR. It's finally grown up and found a purpose. Congratulations, QR code.
Yes.
God bless you.
On the other side, though, I mean, it's something that you see happen in in-person training, right? People build sort of cohorts. They attend classes. If they've been with the brand for a few years, they try to attend together. And I feel like VW Cup has given them an opportunity to even expand that further and have like longer lasting connections with their peers versus that kind of one-off. I went to a class for a couple of days. I met these really cool people. We all have each other's business cards. That's that.
Yep.
And now it's more of, hey, this worked at my dealership. I'm going to post it for everyone to see. It almost trends on VW Cup.
Yeah, and we solicit a lot of those types of responses too. You share best practices with one another, and then they can look. They can also compare how they're performing compared to other people in a similar job role or at their dealership, right? So there's a lot, that we can use that for a lot of like manager-driven engagement and things as well. So it's been really helpful.
But I think you touched on something that I think is interesting, which is a mindset that anybody thinking, the big hot word these days is digital transformation, right? Nobody really knows what it means, but they all can tell you what they have, which is something that they're stuck with. It's a legacy system or legacy ways of doing things, and they don't know how to get past it. And so what happens, they want to buy a solution or something, or they want to find a one size fits all. Very few are daring enough to take the journey that you've taken with the Volkswagen Academy, because the mindset shifts from like, I'm trying to find a single thing to create a solution to I'm not going to be afraid to embrace digital and I'm going to continue to innovate. And that's just part of the life cycle that never ends, right? Like it's just a different way of thinking. And there's very few, and even like start button, right? Like all those things are, if you would have tried to do it at one time, it would have never happened. You would have had one large lumpy Frankencode push. And instead of taking it, very humbly and starting with a certain thing and working from that into building the solution, it means it'll never get stale, because part of the process is continuing to improve that product. And it just keeps going. I mean, the AR is another example, right? But that's digital transformation to me. Transformation, I think, where the misnomer is that you're transforming and there's an end point.
Right.
It is not. It's a life cycle that is continuing. It's a wheel that's turning, and it's always going to be turning. And you have to understand that when you decide you're going to take that journey.
Yeah, and that you don't want to do it all at once, necessarily.
No, that makes perfect sense.
It really is about designing training for the modern learner. Versus designing for how my LMS works.
It's really designing training for the modern human.
For humans,
right?
yes.
It's like,
it's not even just learners.
Again, it's just like the expectation is set so high because it's everything we're doing socially in our life online.
Yeah.
It's the blended communication. It's all of that. The expectation's already set. And then it's like getting back in your DeLorean and zooming back 20 years when it comes to training. And,
Yes.
and the user has just gotten more sophisticated than that.
For sure.
I don't know if it came with the Huey Lewis soundtrack, I'd be tempted.
I'm with you there. So about engagement, response, what have you seen as far as change with the newer approaches that we've done this year? Start button, for example. Are you seeing more people get onboarded? Are we seeing more engagement with the training than we've seen in previous? Are we seeing the upticks that we want to see?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the amount of people who are engaged in content within the first week or two, we always get 2,000 completions on content that just goes live. I mean, that used to be after 4 to 6 months or something like that. People have become conditioned to know where to go to find what they need, and that's all we're trying to accomplish. Because we used to. In the e-learning days, it was like, oh, this course was really good, but somewhere in there they talked about how to remove this one little piece, and I don't know how to find that, and I have to go back through this whole thing. And now there's the dynamic search engine, and there's all these other ways. There's associated content and ways to find the content that you need. And to your point, the people who are more engaged with VW Cup are staying with the brand. They're staying, with the dealership in their roles. They're feeling that sense of value in what we're providing for them. I know there are other things that come into play. I can't say it's only because of this, but are they engaging more? Absolutely.
Yeah,
True.
I agree, and I think it's important for a safe space, right? A space,
Yeah,
a space.
100%.
A space to try, learn, and apply.
Yep.
And then try again and try again. So at 24G, I know we're excited that we've been able to partner with you in that space and to provide content. Well, I think that's a great way for us to close out our session today.
Yeah.
All right, well, then we will workshop soon. Enjoy your Friday afternoon, Darrin.
I will. Thank you,
and
guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it.